Greetings, my fellow starlings. Welcome to another episode of A Witch's Perspective, where we are going to dive into how do I know I'm making the right decision? The right decision. Well, I will give you the answer to that and answers to everything else in the universe. Okay, I won't be, but I will be giving you some thoughts on the right answer, particularly as when you look at historical kind of viewpoints of witches and witchcraft, how often are we the ones consulted for what should I do? Also, having been a practicing witch for so long, the number of times I have done readings for myself of what should I do? Or ask somebody else, what should I do? What's the right path? Which way should I go? Which way should I go? Don't go that way. Never go that way. She'd have gone that way. She'd have gone straight to that castle. Which is neither here nor there for this particular podcast. I am, before we get any further into it, going to comment that last time around I said there would be a part deux to the episode as I expanded into a particular additional area or avenue with regards to time and how pagans and witches particularly engage with things. And that ended up actually being in the sibling episode, An Abysmal Perspective, from the same week. So it's not going to happen here. Sorry, you'll have to go over to the other show and check it out there. And if I have any actual energy and ability, I will put a link in the show notes, but I haven't managed to really do show notes yet because I do this to get this stuff out of my brain and feel like, hey, I'm at least accomplishing a little bit of something potentially useful or interesting to somebody as I'm driving. And again, getting it out of my brain. So now that we have got that disclosure out of the way, coming back to the right decision. And why am I talking about this? Well, because it was very easily inspired by a conversation I had with somebody. We're going to call it yesterday. It could have been. It was probably Monday. Today is probably Wednesday. I probably have a vague sense of time. Right? We all do. Living through it, maybe. So, someone I know who, great news, just in the process of buying a place, in those final hours where you're waiting to sign the last of the papers, both super excited because you're going to own a home and absolutely terrified because you're signing bank papers. And for those who have any idea about the cost of living in the lower mainland of British Columbia, you know why the terror is so big. Oh my goodness. The cost of housing here is beyond the pale. Just an interesting phrase that I actually don't know the source of. So during that conversation, they had expressed a moment of, I really hope I'm making the right decision. And my initial reaction, thought, and probably some degree of commentary, because I did comment, in fact I know I did, was, well, it's actually interesting. What makes something the right decision? How do you know it was the right decision? At what point can you go, yeah, this was the right decision? What criteria do we use? Does it change over time? What if it seems like it now and then something changes? If at any point we decide that it was not the right decision, does that mean it was never the right decision? What the heckity doodah are we talking about with this whole right decision concept? Well, as you can probably tell from all the questions I've already asked, that I don't think it's as simple as there is a right decision and a wrong decision most of the time, because sometimes there is. And this does come very much from the witchy side, that not that you have to be a witch to have the experience, just that I relate the experience to my witchy experiences, energy experience, and all those types of things where you have a level of engagement with information, knowledge, and certainty that is outside of your cognitive space and instead is inhabiting something that is more intrinsic and core and feels like it's related to your holy guardian angel, if you are those types of people to go that way, or your divine spark, which is more the line that I go with, or perfectly aligned with the universe. There are times when you make a decision and you just know it was right. You feel it in your bones. It is not cognitive. It is in a lot of ways visceral. and or so deep into the intuitive that it feels visceral, even if it isn't actually tied into the body. That is not a thinking decision. There are times, or a thinking way of coming to a conclusion that it is the right, that was the right decision. It's not a cognitive checklist process, because the emotional uncertainty, even with a process and a checklist and a pro-con list. Hey, Gilmore Girls. Hi, Rory. Loved that show before, but certain parts did not age well. Sadness, but so much of it, so good. Anyway, excuse the little froggy in the throat. Which, suddenly I'm thinking of the 911 episode, 911 Lone Star? 911 Lone Star, where an actual frog in the story, in the TV show, actually fell into somebody's throat. How horrifically horrifying. Kind of funny, but horrifically horrifying. Oh my goodness. People and their driving. Are you going to pull up enough that I will get out of the intersection? Pull up in front. Come on. There you go. Good job. So, there are times when you can feel that, when you simply know. And there are times when you can know that something is the absolute wrong decision, that it will lead you to a place you do not want to be. It will cause you harm, damage, horror, nightmare, despair, and you just like, oh, heck no. Again, on the level of psychic or emotional or visceral or somatic, not a cognitive decision-making process to truly know it in the way in which I am talking about it. There is a way, of course, approaching from the cognitive view of being very pro-con list about it and an assessment. And the assessment is really good and healthy. And I am not trying to suggest do not do it, because most decisions do not have the ringing bell soul clarity of this was right or this was wrong. Most of them are a muddy muddle in the middle. And pro-con lists are your friend and can help you bring that cognitive assessment into it, because I'm also here to tell you that aside from those moments where our truth cord is ringing pure and we know with that spiritual certainty that something is right or wrong, even then, there is still a chance that we are being misled by other impulses inside of us, our emotional desires going, no, it's totally the right decision. It is totally the right decision to spend the money that I don't have to buy that thing that I absolutely adore, because I will never see it again, and it will make me so happy, and if I don't buy it now, I will be miserable for the rest of my life, and I will never get over it. And that may be true. I may never get over it, but it also doesn't mean that having missed out on it was that I made a wrong decision in not buying it. It might still have been the right decision. Our emotions, as they have assessed over and over again, we will make emotionally feeling-based decisions that fly in the face of a logical reality. There's some psychological tests that they like to do that involves coins and giving out and the odds, and people always, well, it's like lottery tickets. We'll believe the odds that we will beat the odds. That belief that not the bad won't happen to us, and we can have that miracle thing happen, the good thing happen. That's why lotteries are still in business. We are not inherently logical creatures in that sense. We are driven by desire and impulse, etc. So simply going that you know it can also be a fallacy, because we feel so much desire for something that surely it must be real. It's so clear, it's so strong, it's pushing me forward. Because I have had those feelings, but I've also had the ringing bell tone certainties, and there is a distinction between them. Sometimes it is a subtle distinction, but there is a distinction. But it takes time and experience and reflection and evaluation to come to gathering things that fit one criteria or the other, and getting to understand where they are different, being able to differentiate and discriminate between the two. And alas, that comes through trial and error, where some of it is very not the decision that you would consider right. So pulling back to this idea of right decision, what makes the decision right? As I was saying before, even with the certainty part, I've had it where I've had the certainty before the decision is officially made. Like, I know which way it's going to go. I know it's going to happen. My current job, on one level, I knew that I was going to be offered the job. I was going to take it, and it was going to be the right job for me. End of story. That was it. It was going to happen. But the rest of me is very practical and goes, oh my God, I've applied. I haven't heard back. I haven't and then I have an interview and it's taking forever. Oh my goodness. Because there are those two levels to that. Just because you may even experience that internal certainty and have a level of knowledge, witchy-wise, that says, yeah, no, I know it is going to happen. I still don't simply rely on that and coast through life as if that is an infallible thing that will guarantee, because nothing is infallible, and maybe it was a truth and then something else changed and now it is no longer a truth. Those things also happen. But even before I applied for that job, I knew that if I applied for it, I would get it. It was that kind of woven into the becoming fabric of the universe, versus there are things that I don't know for certain until after the decision is made, and then I know if it's the right or wrong decision. Now, amusingly, and I think this actually happens for a lot of people, you can use this when you're struggling deciding between A or B, between a bran muffin or a blueberry muffin, for a non-random example, and you're completely stuck because you're Pisces, and the small decisions are the things that kill you. There you are going, oh my God, which one do I want? And the poor waitress is standing there. Your friends are looking at you like, oh my God, seriously, again? And so eventually you put it out, bran muffin. And they're like, okay. And the moment it's out of your mouth, actually, no, I take it back. Blueberry. It was totally blueberry. I totally want a blueberry muffin. Though I will say, even though people are like, ooh, bran muffin, a well-made bran muffin, even now, can kind of have that little like happy flavor in my mouth, memory. And it is memory because gluten-free. And I really don't think that bran is gluten-free. Anyhow, by making the act of the decision, by deciding one versus the other, instead of being in this limbo place where both seemingly have the rightness to the answer, where both are potentially right, by concretizing it into the decision, it can then trigger the, oh yeah, no, that actually is the right decision, or the, oh hell fuck no, that is not the right decision, because now we can actually ping against it in a more defined and real way. So it is actually a way to get yourself out of that quandary. And if you're ever stuck in it, the flipping of the coin is, you can let the coin toss simply decide, but your reaction to the decision that the coin toss gives you can also, if not actually, be a better indicator of how you actually feel about it and what you truly want, because you'll either be happy with the result or not so happy, in which case you could still change your mind, because if you're doing a coin toss to make up your own mind, you can also change it to something else, unless of course you've somehow tied it all in and someone else is doing, and then you're stuck. But that seems like a lot of work to go to for simply trying to figure out whether you want to go A or B. Righto. But in this case, the right answer, so there's that feeling. You could have it at any point. It could be real, it could be not. But what do we even mean? What makes something right? And I'm of the opinion in this moment, as I'm ramblingly contemplating it, and while I was thinking a little bit about it yesterday and this morning, really, right is a perspective. Right is a feeling. Right is, I bet, a lot of time tied to, it feels good, it makes me happy, it makes me safe, it makes me feel certain, right? Like all of these positive reactions that we want to have in our life. Unless, of course, what you were seeking was thrills and adventure, in which case something that made you feel safe was probably not the right decision if that's not what you were looking for. But the point is, what you feel like you are getting what you were looking for. You are getting that, I got what I wanted. I got that reassurance. It was the right decision because it feels right, because it completes me, because it X, fill in the blank. Everybody's right for any particular thing is going to be individual, not just for them, how they react, but also on different things. Because just because it was right this time doesn't mean it's going to be the right decision next time, or that it was be the right decision for somebody else. It's so dependent on the context, environment, situation, individual, that who knows? And therefore, is it even about a right or a wrong decision? There are those extremes where, yeah, that was a really good decision. You are going to be happy from it. You buy a place and everything works out really great. It all wins, no losses, maybe a little bit of challenge, hard to make the payments for the first years, whatever, but totally happy overall. And maybe that's the counter, that you have on average a more positive experience than a negative one. Over the long haul makes it a right decision. And again, if it switches to a wrong decision down the road, does that invalidate all the previous rightness? Because maybe it was right, and then it's no longer right. Well, then was it actually wrong? I don't think so. I think the circumstances just changed. That's my opinion. This witch's perspective. Just me. So the right decision is the one that feels right in the moment, makes you feel good, feels like it's traveling you into the future that you want to have. I suspect that that's a good portion of it. It's a way of approaching it. We can try and evaluate all the way along, because if you are trying to balance, well, it is all those particular circumstances, it is the environment it happened in, it is about the people involved, it is about the future costs, it is about all of these things that go into making this, whether or not it was the right or wrong decision. We will never be able to quantify absolutely every variable. There will always be ultimately an assessment of, right now in this moment, it has been a net benefit, so we'll call it the right decision. Or a net negative, and we'll call it the wrong one. But even at that, you could still have a situation where everything says that it was right, it seems right, but in the end, if you had done the other thing, wow, life would have been very different and potentially better. Or it seems like the wrong decision, but the journey that you have to travel through, because everything was so hard based off of that decision, that you're like, oh, well, that journey transformed me into the person I always wanted to be, which I wouldn't be now if I hadn't made that decision that seems very much like it was the wrong decision. And then there is also let's see if I can grab it, because I got a little distracted there in my head for a moment, and I had this other approach about the right versus wrong apparentness and presumption. Nope, I tried there. Did you hear it? Did you hear me trying to stall for time to see if my brain would kick it back out into the front land so that I could spit it out of my mouth? Yeah, I tried. I still tried a little bit longer. I don't think it's happening. But you get the general idea that there's all of this weight that we put onto, I have to make the right decision, which can also paralyze you. And then you become into the land of not making any decision at all, which is almost never the right decision. In that case, the not making decision, which is still ultimately a decision because you have not taken any action, therefore you have not taken action, therefore you have done opposite to the action taking that could have been the right decision. Or maybe it was the wrong decision in doing nothing, but if you're not deciding to do nothing, if you're simply stuck in stasis and trapped in in the freeze response, that is not making a decision, and at the same time ultimately becomes one because you have not actually made a decision and taken action. You end up with the default of the stuck now. And maybe it's better that you didn't do anything, that you got afraid. But see, it all comes down to an evaluation after the fact of, well, how did it turn out? And that evaluation can keep changing over time as we discover more and more about that point, that decision point in our life, and how other things down the tree or the shrub or whatever it is, the path that we were, big loud truck, that's, yeah, awesome, dude. we have all these possibility branches, let's say, but we constantly prune our life into a particular pathway. And our evaluation on whether that was a good prune or a bad prune that we did may change over time, as we're like, well, for this year it was a really good prune, but for the following 5 it actually turned out to have really sucked. But then after that it came back to being good. So why, if it's going to constantly be this ever-changing assessment, because we're evaluating whether it was good or bad in relation to how it has impacted our life in this current moment, and this current moment is going to keep changing because we keep changing and growing and moving through time, well, then maybe we should just move away from trying to say, was it the right decision or the wrong decision, and go, oh my God, the license plate at the very, very loud truck is forever bad. All right, you do you, dude. You do you, and take some assessment pride in that. That's a big muffler. No wonder it's loud. So, move away from this, is it the right decision, is it the wrong decision, into a, okay, made the decision, how am I feeling about the consequences right now? Can I live with these consequences? Do they make me happy? Do they not make me happy? Do I want to mitigate this? Do I not want to mitigate this? We often panic right after a decision, and there's all the second guessing and, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that, because we're having, again, emotional reactions to the possibilities of what could happen. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it isn't. And all we can do is pay attention, do a whole bunch of reflection afterwards, and come into a better understanding of how we ourselves react, how we feel, and start to understand, when I felt this particular way in my inner soul, that turned out to be a really healthy experience that was really useful for me. So I'm going to put that in the follow that feeling, trust in that feeling. This other feeling, it felt really good. It was like eating chocolate, so good in the moment. Oh, God, yes. But the after feelings were also very much like chocolate, which was regret, unhappy, uncomfortable feeling. I don't do well with the caffeine or the sugar. So I typically have regrets after I eat chocolate, because I'm not necessarily going to feel that great physiologically afterwards. And the same can be said for feelings post or even pre-decision making. And it's learning to discern how your etheric system, if you will, reacts to that more extended universal understanding of the decision that you've made and its impact into your life, of whether this is something that ultimately you will consider a good thing or a bad thing. I'm also thinking the only real assessment and the finalized accounting comes when you die, because up until that moment everything is changing, and for all we know it keeps changing after you died, so does it even matter in that sense? Oh my word, all the possibilities, all the strangenesses. With that, my lovely starlings, I have been at this for longer than I would have expected, so I'm going to bid you a very fond farewell. Good luck in all of your decision making that's coming up. I hope that you take some time to embrace it in a, this is a road I want to try, so I'm going to see what happens, and let go a little bit of that right or wrong, because all you're doing is trying to judge on yourself, and that's not going to do you any favors in the short or the long term. All right, take great care of yourselves. Blessed be.